Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good evening, councillors and members in the public gallery. I'll officially open this evening's ordinary council meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you for your attendance tonight. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that the comments are respectful to the council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. There are no announcements from the presiding member this evening. Attendance tonight we have Mayor Councillor Pifaretti and Councillor Eveson attending via the meeting electronically. Councillor Clark and Councillor Maleka are on leave of absence this evening. No apologies have been received and all remaining councillors are present in the chamber this evening. Are there any councillors who'd like to apply for a leave of absence? Councillor Ball?
Yes. Sorry, just finding it. Can I please apply for Monday the 5th of December to Wednesday, change that, Sunday the 4th of December to Wednesday the 7th of December.
Are there any other applications for leave of absence? I'll ask for a mover. Councillor Palmer, seconder. Councillor Peterson-Pick. Is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous. Does anyone have any disclosures of interest? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you there, Deputy Mayor. This will be on 10.6.2.4 and 10.6.2.5. Both of these items contain the streets where I live. Therefore, it's a proximity interest to the discussions taking place, and I will leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pifaretti. Mayor Pifaretti, my apologies.
I'd like to declare an interest in 10.4.3 chaplaincy services. A number of schools on which I sit on the board are named in this report. It is an impartial interest and I'll be staying online.
Thank you. Councillor Ostaszewski.
Thank you. Mine is for item 10.4.4, the Australia Day Awards. It's an impartial interest. I know people who have been nominated and I'll be staying in the room for that one.
Councillor Pifaretti, Mayor Pifaretti.
Thank you. Also, I forgot to mention 10.4.4 Australia Day Awards. I too know people who are mentioned in the report. It is an impartial interest and I'll be staying online.
Thank you. Are there any other? Councillor Palmer.
Yes, just with the fact that at the briefing we did mention various disclosures. Do we have to repeat them again, or are they already in situ?
CEO.
Through you, Chair. We have them recorded, councillors, but if you want to name them again for the council meeting for public record, then you can do so. But we do have a list from the agenda forum briefing of the declarations that were made, councillor.
Go through them. Definitely go through them, because you have to.
Councillor Eveson.
Yes, mine's for 10.4.4, the Australia Day Awards. And it is just that I do know people that are listed and for nominations.
So that's an impartial?
And I'm staying alive.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson?
Likewise, 10.4.4, the Australia Day Awards, and no number of people who are mentioned in the report. I'll be staying in the room. It's an impartial interest.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland?
Yeah, I've got two. The first one's the same one, 10.4.4, which knows some of the people in the Australia Day Awards. And the other one, 10.060242, the car parking town planning scheme. I've got a couple of properties in Bayswater. I'm not sure if it's in that area, but I think just to be on the safe side, I'll declare an interest and go out the room.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you. Yes, I'll just repeat it, although I have done it before. The 10.4.3 chaplaincy services, just a disclosure there, as I'm on one of the schools boards. The disclosure on 10.4.4, knowing some of those on the Australia Day Awards. Also on 10.4.2, just being a childcare chairperson of the Bayswater Childcare Centres, just disclosure there. And there's also the infant Jesus is mentioned on the list of payments, so there's a disclosure there, not financial.
Is that item 10.2.3?
10.2.3, yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Bull.
Thank you. Item 10.4.1, the Australia Day Awards. Some nominees are known to me. It's an impartial interest and I'll stay in the room. 10.4.2, proposed change of use to childcare daycare centre. I am on the management committee of the Bayswater Childcare Association. It's an impartial interest and I'll stay in the room. 10.4.3, chaplaincy services. I'm a board member of Bayswater Primary School, Hillcrest Primary School and Durham Road School. It's an impartial interest and I'll stay in the room. And item 10.5.1, review of place-based strategy 2022 to 2025. I live opposite Gobber Lake, which is contemplated in the report. It's a proximity interest and I'll stay in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson-Pick. Sorry, Councillor Ball, could you turn off your microphone, please?
Yes, two impartial interests. One on item 10.4.3, chaplaincy services. I'm a board member on the board of the Maylands Peninsula Primary School, and which is mentioned in the report. The second interest is with regards to 10.4.4. I know some of the nominees as part of this item and as part of my role as a councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
One more. I forgot to declare an impartial interest for 10.4.2. Also a member of the Childcare Board.
Thank you. And I have a declaration with item 10.4.4. It's an impartial interest. I know several of the nominees. Thank you. So if that is all, we'll move on to public question time. Members of the gallery, I'll first call for questions on items on this evening's agenda and then I'll open to questions on items not on the agenda. Please keep in mind that you are limited to 3 questions. Are there any questions on items on this evening's agenda? No? Are there any questions on items not on this evening's agenda? I do have your question here. Is this a different one?
Yes, I've read it. No, that's all right. No, I've got one question there.
Yeah.
Take advantage of this.
Oh, you just-
What I would like to, Harvey Tonkin, harveyt@ionet.net.au. I would just like to know when a staff member / senior staff member leaves the council, does anyone follow up the emails that were addressed to them?
I'll go through to the CEO to answer this one.
Through you, Chair, there would be a handover process and a follow-up in relation to that. So, yes.
But even if after they've left, like that might be on the day they leave. I had a situation where I think I found out afterwards, but they'd left 2 weeks before I'd emailed a question. And I just wondered whether it didn't come back, whether it got swallowed up.
Happy to look into that, Madam Chair. So,
We'll take that one on
Yeah.
notice.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll close public question time. So we move on to confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting on the 25th of October. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ostaszewski, a seconder. Councillor Palmer. Is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you. Presentations and petitions. Do any councillors have a petition to table? Councillor Peterson-Pick?
Yes, thank you. I have one petition, and I will read it out. We wish to table petition from local residents regarding Kirkham Heights apartments in Maylands. Please be aware of our grievance regarding the location and management of the bulk rubbish bin at the front of the Kirkham Heights apartments. As long-term residents of Kirkham Hill Terrace living adjacent to the apartments, we are severely impacted by the placement of the bin and specifically the accumulation of bulk rubbish, which often spills out to adjacent land and public footpath. Therefore, street residents frequently spend time cleaning up the surrounding area. And it goes on, and there are 28 signatures. And
Thank
I believe
you.
the city has a copy of the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no presentations this evening. Oh, sorry, mover. Can I have a mover for the petition, please? Councillor Palmer and a seconder. Councillor Ball. Is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you. There are no presentations this evening. Deputations were heard at last week's agenda briefing forum, and there are no delegates' reports on this evening's agenda. So we now move on to the method of dealing with agenda business. Pulling first this evening will be Councillor Sutherland.
Okay, I would like to move, please, 10.3.1, speeding on Mujibing Street. 10.4.1, proposed three-storey single house. 10.4.2, the changed use to childcare. 10.4.4, Australia Day Awards. 10.5.1, review of play space strategy. And I think that is all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Pifferetti?
Thank you. Could I please pull item 10.4.3 chaplaincy services and item 10.6.2.2 planning policy review?
Thank you. Councillor Peterson-Pick. Councillor Sutherland, could you please turn off your microphone?
Oh,
Councillor Ball?
10.2.1, 10.6.1.1, 10.6.1.2, and 10.6.1.3.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson? Councillor Ostaszewski?
Nothing at the moment, thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you. 10.4.2, oh no, you've taken that, sorry. 10.4, I'm looking for the one, 10.1.1, thank you. And 10.2.2, 10.2.3, and 10.6.2.1. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Eveson?
No, nothing from me, thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll now move to adopt the remaining items on block. These items are 14.1.2, 10.6.1, 10.6.2.
Sorry, just want to check. So item 14 are closed to the public. So
Oh, sorry, you're right, Councillor Ball. It's only items 10 in the agenda.
and
Sorry.
item 10.6.1 is a heading.
Yes, my apologies on that one. So item 10.6.2.3, 10.6.2.4, 10.6.2.5. That was oh no, sorry, 10.6.2.4 is a proximity, so that one can't. 10.6.2.5, 10.6.2.6.
I think 10.6.2.5 had a proximity as well.
No, I don't have that one on proximity.
I think Councillor Palmer declared it for 10.6.2.5 as well.
Oh, yes, my apologies on that one. So it'll be 10.6.2.3, which is the planning policy signage policy, 10.6.2.6, which is the modification to the planning policy review schedule, and that is all on that one. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sutherland, and a seconder? Councillor Ostaszewski, is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous, thank you. Okay, thank you, councillors. We'll first consider the items that were the subject of deputations. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to bring items 10.3.1, 10.4.1, 10.4.2 and 10.6.2.2 forward to the beginning of section 10 for discussion before we resume the order of business as set out in the agenda. Councillor Sutherland moving, and seconded by Mayor Pifferetti. Is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous. So the first item we're dealing with is 10.3.1, speeding on Moojibing Street, and this was pulled by Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you. I'd like to support the officer's recommendation, so...
And seconded by Councillor Ball.
Okay. Look, there's not really much to say. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'd like to thank the deputation last week. It is a concerning issue, especially when we saw a petition being tabled with 60% of the people on that street signing that petition. I think we must support the residents with this motion. The street is obviously becoming increasingly residential. I went and had a look at it the other day, and it's important that the council try and accommodate where possible. It is an area going under a great transformation with some industry and also, as I said before, more residential coming on. It's also worth noting that the road has seen 11 crashes along this street between Guildford and Hardy Roads. So that, to me, was a big wake-up call. While we can't stop hooning, it is possible with some road modifications that we can reduce it. And I think it's important to put signs on the road, especially where there is no footpaths. I think that's a must. I could go on, but in summary, for the residents, for safety and peace of mind, I think the council should support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
I'd firstly like to thank the head petitioner for taking the lead on this really important road safety issue in this residential area. I know he and his fellow neighbours have been working really hard to liaise with local residents and neighbours on this street, and taking the time to knock doors, have discussions, and understand everyone's view, and really advocate for something that is very important. This is a special little residential area just up from Claughton Reserve, and increasingly there is more and more traffic. And so the opportunity to be able to work with local residents in Moojibing Street to help them achieve what they believe is really important, which is to improve road safety in this area, I think is something that this council should definitely get behind. And I encourage councillors to support what's on the table this evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak for the item? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the item? I'll put that to the vote. Is there any dissent? I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you. So that item is passed. Item 10.4.1, proposed three-storey single house, pulled by Councillor Sutherland.
Yes, I'd like to support the officer's recommendation and support this motion, this proposed three-storey single house.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Ostaszewski.
Okay, well, firstly, again, I'm happy to approve this development. I personally don't like to stand in the way of people building their homes. Delays cost money, and homes are expensive enough to build now without more delays. I was happy with the deputation last week, and I feel this development fits neatly into with the suburb. The biggest issue for me was the height variation, but both the deputation and the officers have addressed that adequately. I find the explanation by the officers of the objections satisfactory as well. Just on the heritage thing, I think I've been around, I went and had a look, did a bit of drive around this weekend to North Perth, Mount Hawthorn, and even some of the western suburbs, and there's plenty of examples of old and new right next to each other, so I can't see how that's a problem. So I do encourage councillors to support this development. Thank you.
Councillor Ostaszewski? Do we have a speaker for? A speaker against? Is there any dissent? I'll take that as carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 10.4.2, proposed change of use to child daycare centre. That was pulled by Councillor Sutherland. Did you want to move the officer's recommendation as it's come out in the new addendum?
Yes, I was wishing to move the amended recommendation that came out in the addendum today. Thank you.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Palmer? Oh, sorry. Councillor Sutherland.
Look, I would like to support this new, obviously the officer's recommendation, the new one, for several reasons. The first one is overwhelming support for a facility like this in Bayswater. Just on a side issue, if you look at the latest data in the 2021 census that was just released on October this year, you see that Bayswater has got now a relatively young age, 39 being the new median age here. So there are more young families are obviously wanting to make Bayswater their home, which I think is a great thing. So if that's the case, then we need more facilities, especially also if you want the extra women going back into the workforce. As we know, we have a labour shortage as it is, so I think anything that we can do to accommodate that has to be a winner. And Bayswater in particular has a shortage of childcare places. Secondly, I was happy with the deputation last week in terms of traffic and parking issues. Obviously, they're always the biggest bugbear, especially in any inner city area, but there's no different to Bayswater as there would be in Mount Hawthorn or North Perth. We sort of, I feel that the officers have done a lot of work on this and the applicant to try and alleviate that. The applicant has provided more parking bays in peak hours, and obviously this will cater for more drop-offs as well. I also believe that there will be more foot traffic. I'm hoping that anyway. Parents usually drop off their children and then they've got the school across the road and then daycare. They can walk to these services as they're all in the same place, and it's also close to public transport. And once that train's built and operating, hopefully there'll be even more foot traffic. The other thing, turning to the economic way, I feel Bayswater town site needs some more businesses. Obviously, it's disappointing. Last week I heard a few more businesses are closed down in the train in that town centre. And I think as a council we must keep an eye on the economic development of the local community. This town site's one of the least developed considering how close we are to the CBD. I also welcome the adoption of the heritage building. It can only be a benefit to the street. We don't want this to get any more deteriorated than it already is. Finally, I just think we need to be more proactive as a council, or continue to be proactive and help encourage these sorts of developments as they are desperately needed. So I'm hoping we support the new motion that is on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, Councillor Sutherland, could you please turn off your microphone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as involved highly with the not City of Bayswater, but the Bayswater Childcare Association Incorporated, I've put a disclosure to say that. Therefore, I do understand the lack of childcare that we have in our association. We have empty seats, empty chairs, empty places, and this could be a great spillover for both of us. It can only advantage the area. I like the fact that the alternative motion has been very careful with the traffic study and so forth, and the numbers, and that there will be lots of monitoring over this next 12 months to see that our residents in Murray Street are kept informed and kept satisfied with the monitoring of the city on the whole area there. The proponent has been very careful, and we thank them for that, and we hope it will be a great success and that we can all work together on this as childcare people. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to speak in favour? Does anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Ball?
I think this is a really good application. However, I am not going to support this because I have really significant concerns about the negative impact that this proposal will have to the residents who live on Murray Street. Those residents have been putting up with traffic and parking issues for years and years, and sadly, that this is going to exacerbate that. I think it's really important to take into consideration the fact that local residents in this area have to put up with a lot of traffic and a lot of parking issues already. And what we found out through the briefing last week, it is only going to add to that. Secondly, we also found out from the briefing last week that this proposal will result in more cars parking closer to the shops in the Bayswater Town Centre, which I know that the Bayswater Traders Association has been very, very passionate and very, very clear around the importance of having car parking available for local businesses in that area. And I know the City and Council has been working really hard with the traders over the course of the last number of years to help facilitate more parking in the area. This, unfortunately, we found out last week, is likely to actually take car parking away at a time when businesses need our support more than ever. And so short of something to show to establish the fact that this will not have a detrimental impact on the existing businesses, in light of that information that was brought across, it's not something that I can support. As I said, there are many positive features to this application, but in the location, there are issues around parking and traffic that have not been ameliorated that I can see. And on that basis, I'm going to support the residents and I'm going to support the local businesses and not support the proposal.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker for? Councillor Ofsted-Zowski?
Thank you. I'll just say two things if I can follow up from what Councillor Bull has just said. In regards to the people having parking issues there for numerous years, I was quite impressed to read information that the city provided to us in regards to the interactions that they've had with council over probably a decade now or a little bit more, and how they are managing parking in that area. And one thing I noticed in the information is that the city is always trying to help the residents in that area in regards to parking, and councillors of that area are always helping those residents as well. And this issue regularly comes back to council for further, moulding and shaping so that the residents can get something that's satisfactory or at least appropriate. It's near the Bayswater Town Centre, it's near a major train station, it's 6 kilometres out from the city, it's in the city. This area is always going to be changing and evolving and developing. And what I like about the information we've seen about parking is that we are proactive in helping those residents to get that something that is at least manageable and acceptable. And if it isn't, we do go back and investigate it again and how we can make it better. And there is evidence of us doing that. And just in regards to the parking bays for shops, I think we heard from the deputy, or we've read it, that the peak times for the childcare is earlier morning. I'm thinking 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, pre-shops opening, and also later in the afternoon. From my understanding, is it's after shops have perhaps closed as well. So I don't think people parking. Sorry, Councillor, I'd just like to finish first, please. So I just think that if we're worrying about cars being taken up in the town centre, I don't think that shops perhaps are going to be, having those spaces available for customers at the same time that potentially people in Murray Street might need to be using car bays. Thank you.
Do we have a speaker against? Any speakers for? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes. Look, while I understand some of the concerns that nearby residents have with regards to this application and the whole situation in that area, I think I am going to support this because I think it is a good location for a childcare centre. It is close to the train station, to a bus route, to shops. I believe lots of parents, after they will drop the kids, they can enjoy coffee and other services in the town centre. This is exactly what we want to see, something that will attract more people to the Bayswater town centre. Childcare, and it should be mentioned, this is essential service for parents. This is not just an ordinary residential development which contributes to parking issues. This is a childcare service that is essential for parents, and there is a very urgent need for that and shortage. Anyone who know parents with young kids, those ages, will tell you how much there is shortage. We have residents in our city that are going far away for other cities because there are not enough childcare centres in our area, and I think this is a really bad outcome. And I also want to mention the advantage in keeping the heritage, and thank the applicant for doing so. And I think this is another way for us as the council to give back. We did see a lot of applications during the years of applicants who are proposing to demolish heritage places or partially demolish them. This is the opposite. We're talking about here preservation, and I think this is a way for us to show our respect for that. So I will support this.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against? Any for? I'll put that item to the vote then. Is there... Sorry? Oh, my apologies. Councillor Southern, would you like right of reply?
Look, I haven't got much to say. I think I thank the councillors for all their opinions. Look, I do understand Councillor Bull's concerns in terms of the parking in the morning and the afternoon, but however, I think the overall project is going to be outstanding for the vast majority of the community. So looking at the community as a whole, I think it's a winner. I also think, I would think in that area that businesses must benefit surely, as there's more activation on the streets, more people will be around in the morning and afternoon. I know where I work in the morning, the local shops are happy because parents go and have their coffee, their morning coffee, walk their dog, that sort of thing. So I think there's more activation, and hopefully, you know, that pattern will continue with this model. So I think it's a welcome development for the Bayswater town site and much needed.
Thank you. I'll now put the item to the vote. Is there any dissent?
Yes.
So, your hand up. So, Councillor Bull against? This is how I'm running the meeting. As a presiding member, we ask if there's I ask if there's a dissent, which means the vote.
Sorry, can you explain what the process is?
Sorry, okay.
It's never happened before in my history at this place.
While I'm presiding, at my experience from various other councils and state council is we ask if there's dissent, which is the vote. So if you do not agree, you raise your hand or indicate that you are not going to vote for the item. We will acknowledge that, and then the remainder in the room are taken as voting for the item. I'll go to governance so they can clarify for you. It's a different word, but yeah.
The presiding member should put their vote in the affirmative and then in the negative, but it's not all votes have to be read out. The presiding member can declare the vote as long as the vote is recorded in the minutes with each councillor's vote recorded.
So it has to be put in the affirmative first.
When someone moves it and seconds it, you can say, does anyone opposed? And then you can declare it as carried. But once you've gone through the whole debate process, you have to go
Okay, councillors. We're voting for. So that's Councillor Ostaszowski, Palmer, Sutherland, Peterson-Pick, Johnson, Mayor Piffretti and Councillor Eveson. Those against? Councillor Ball. Oh, my apologies. They're going to take the vote again, yes. You're correct. So voting for the item, myself, Councillor Ostaszowski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Peterson-Pick, Councillor Johnson, Mayor Piffretti and Councillor Eveson. Those against? Councillor Ball. Okay. Next item on the agenda is trees on private land and street verges policy as pulled by Councillor Sutherland. Oh, sorry, Councillor Piffretti, my apologies.
Sorry, I pulled 10.4.3 chaplaincy services.
No, you got me on that one. Sorry. 10.6.2 was pulled by...
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
I have that down
That-
here as...
Yes, that was me. Thank you.
Sorry, so who can, sorry, Madam Chair, so who pulled 10.6.2.2?
I did.
Mayor Piffretti.
So she did, okay.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
She said no.
No, I didn't say no. I thought the next item, I was following the agenda at 10.4.3. I just realised we're going deputations first.
So, Mayor Piffretti, what do you intend to do with this item?
I'm moving the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder for this item? 10.6.2.2, we're going through the section of deputations which we voted to pull them all to the beginning of the agenda, Councillor Ball. Is there a seconder for this item? Yeah, no, this is for 10.6.2.2, trees on private land and street verges policy. Yep, so that's seconded by Councillor Ostaszowski. Mayor Piffretti.
Nothing to say at this point.
Councillor Ostaszowski. Nothing? Does anyone want to speak in favour of this?
I have a question.
Question, Councillor Ball?
Thank you. So if we go to the policy under the heading requirements for trees on street verges,
What page number, please?
I only have the
382.
it's page 4 of the proposed policy as marked up. Paragraph 2 says, where this occurs, the City of Bayswater will seek compensation from the utility provider or other authority for the amenity Halliwell valuation of the tree plus the cost of removing the existing tree. When I read this, it says that the City of Bayswater is required to do something, but I can't see anything that says that it must be paid by the utility provider or other authority. Is my interpretation correct?
I'll go through to the relevant officer.
Through the chair, the way it's worded is they seek compensation from the actual service authority. That's the intent. Whether that stays clear, I'm not sure whether the manager wishes to clarify that, but that's my understanding is that we're going to seek compensation for the valuation of the tree from the actual service agency.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Ball?
Yeah, so my question is my interpretation correct that it requires the City of Bayswater to do something, which is to seek compensation, but it doesn't require a utility provider or authority to actually pay it? That's my question. Is my interpretation correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, the intention is that the city would seek compensation from the utility provider.
And so my question is, does it compel the utility provider to pay it once the City of Bayswater has sought that compensation?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, it would. Yes.
Excellent. I have another question, if
Yes.
I may. So paragraph 3 works similarly. It says, where this occurs, the City of Bayswater will seek compensation from the landowner for the amenity Halliwell valuation of the tree plus the cost of removing the existing tree. My question is, given that it has a positive requirement for the City of Bayswater to do something but doesn't say that the landowner has to pay compensation, does it still operate to compel the landowner to seek compensation, or could the landowner use this as a loophole to not pay it because it's only the City of Bayswater who is described as being compelled to do something?
I'll go to the officer.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would need to take that on notice.
Through the chair, if I could just, it's, the intent is that it'll pay, but strictly speaking, it could be argued that it's a request, but not necessary. So, but that's the intent, and that's the way it was structured, that they will, that it is to be paid.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, certainly.
Thanks. So in paragraph 4, the next paragraph, it talks about if no street trees exist or a street tree is to be removed, at least one new standard tree is to be provided by the landowner or developer. The words, it doesn't refer to utility provider or authority. Is that intentional, or was the intent that it also extend to utility providers or authorities?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it's not intended to include utility providers.
Okay. Would it be possible to get an explanation as to why it doesn't extend to utility providers?
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, because utility providers aren't required to seek a development approval to develop land. It's regarded as public works, and we generally don't get involved in that.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to propose some amendments, please.
Certainly.
Thank you. So, so the committee recommendation that council adopts a modified trees on private land and street tree policy is contained in attachment 3 to this report, and the amendment will be as follows: the following words after the word report, with the following amendments. Colon, paragraph A, in paragraph 2, under the heading, open inverted commas, capital R, requirements for capital T trees on capital S street, capital V verges, close inverted commas, comma, after the words open inverted commas, removing the existing tree, close inverted commas, comma, the words open inverted commas, and the utility provider or other authority must pay such amounts to the City of Bayswater as directed by the City of Bayswater, close inverted commas, are inserted, semicolon, paragraph, this is B. In paragraph 3, under the heading open inverted commas, capital R requirements for capital T trees on capital S street, capital V verges, close inverted commas, comma, after the words open inverted commas, removing the existing tree, close inverted commas, comma, the words open inverted commas, and the landowner must pay such amounts to the City of Bayswater as directed by the City of Bayswater, close inverted commas, are inserted. Stop, full stop.
Is that the end of your amendment? We'll just wait till that's up on the screen for everyone to read. Okay, councillors, that's all on the screen. I'll just ask first if the mover and the seconder would consider accepting this amendment. So, mover being Mayor Piferetti.
I can't see what's on the screen.
Agree, can't see, sorry.
Yeah, if that can be sent through in the chat. Can you see that now?
Yep, can I just have a moment to read it, please?
Certainly. Sorry, just while the Mayor is considering that, Councillor Ball, I'm just wondering if, just to make it clearer in where you've got A in paragraph 2, just to make that clearer, if you want to put, I would suggest if you would consider in point 2. Thank you. So Mayor Piferetti, were you happy to accept that as an amendment?
Madam Acting Mayor, before I indicate whether I will accept this, am I able to get some advice from the relevant director as to the implications of this? I wasn't provided with these amendments prior to the meeting. And I'd like to understand the implications of making these changes before I accept it or not.
Sure, I'll go through to the director.
Through the chair, the amendments basically clarifies what the intent was, which was for the service agency, utility or landowner in terms of point 3, utility agency in terms of point 2 to pay, actually the city can actually require them to pay that compensation. So it achieves the, it clarifies the intent of the wording that currently exists in the policy, in the draft amended policy.
Thank you. On that basis, I'm happy to accept the amendment.
And seconder? Okay, the mover and seconder have accepted those amendments. Did you wish to talk to the item?
Very briefly, I'd just like to say thank you to the mover and the seconder. And look, maybe it's a bit pernickety, but the way that those paragraphs are drafted currently, I can just see a potential loophole for an applicant to argue that there is a positive obligation on the City of Bayswater to seek compensation, but not a positive obligation on the applicant, the landowner or the utility provider to actually pay the compensation. We got confirmation from staff this evening, the director and the manager, that the intent is that where the city is pursuing the payment of compensation based on the Halliwell system, that a landowner or utility provider would pay that compensation. This seeks to close a potential loophole that may be utilised in the future that could result in ratepayers not receiving that compensation. So thank you.
Is there a speaker against? Councillor Johnson?
Sorry, not against. I have a question.
Oh, yeah, certainly question.
Thank you. Sorry. Under also requirements for trees on street verges, so clause 1B, it says there is an unacceptable, it says trees should be retained unless there is an unacceptable level of risk that exists within the tree structure and remedial techniques cannot rectify. I'm just wondering if I can get a little bit of advice about what is an unacceptable level of risk.
Going through the chair.
Through the chair, I might, if the manager can help in regards to that.
Through you, Madam Chair, the city would seek the city's arborist to review the condition of the tree. It may even seek the landowner to get an arborist report on the condition and structural integrity of the tree. It may be that it's on a lean. It may be lifting. It may have struck branches or limbs that are in danger of falling and injuring people, but it's largely up to an arborist to be able to provide that clarification to us.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, certainly.
Sorry. Do we have like a level of risk that's acceptable, or is there a number or a scale? I don't really know about tree assessment, sorry.
Through you, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, sorry. Beg your pardon. This is largely up to the consulting arborist to advise the city's officers.
Okay. Did anyone wish to speak against this item? Anyone for? I'll put the item to the vote. Those in favour? Oh, sorry. Apologies. Yeah. Okay, so in favour is myself, Councillor Ostaszowski, Councillor Palmer, Mayor Piferetti, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Peterson-Pick, Councillor Ball, Councillor Johnson. Those against? Oh, Councillor Sutherland. Yes, I did. I called myself first to make sure I didn't forget. Okay, those are the items subject of deputations, minus an item from section 14. We'll move on to the next item of a business, which is item 10.1.1, which was pulled by Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to propose an alternate motion with regard to the diary events of meetings that are submitted in this item, please. And if you'd like me to start, do you want me to?
If you'd like to read that out for us, please.
Certainly, thank you. That Council approves the 2023 meeting schedule as contained in attachment 1 of this report, with the following amendments. A, removal of the councillor briefing schedule on 17th of January 2022. B, the Inclusion and Diversity Advisory Committee scheduled on the 9th of February, rescheduled to the 16th. The inclusion, I'll just A, B, C, D and E. Inclusion and diversity scheduled on the 11th of May to go to the 18th. The same meeting to go from the 10th of August to the 17th. And the same meeting from the 9th of November to the 16th of November. And 2, notes that the CEO will publish the 2023 meeting details for ordinary council meetings and committee meetings open to the public on the city's website in accordance with R12 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. And the reason for the change, the councillor briefing scheduled on the 17th of January was removed as it occurs during the January school holiday period, and the inclusion and advisory committees were rescheduled to avoid clashes with the EMRC agenda briefing forums. So from that point of view, it's to actually not lose any committees, but just
Sorry,
move them a
Councillor
little.
Palmer, I'll just stop you just there. I'll just seek a
Certainly.
seconder. So do we have a seconder for this item? Councillor Johnston. Please continue, Palmer. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so really it's just to organise the schedules so that the January 2 weeks to 3 weeks holiday for families and so forth are far more practical. And this we've really done every year, so it's no slip up. It's just a matter of changing dates. Nothing's been lost by it, but just a more well patterned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson. Do we have a speaker for? A speaker against? I'll put the item to the vote then. Those in favour? That's unanimous from everyone present. Thank you. We'll move on to item 10.2.1 that was pulled by Councillor Bull. Is there a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Councillor Bull.
Thank you. I just thought I'd move this to just acknowledge the staff, actually. It's not a large team that works on this stuff. I mean, the information that feeds into these reports comes across the whole organisation, but it all comes to a particular point within the organisation. And I know how hard the finance team work. They put in tireless hours, and I know, as I said, it's not a large team, and they work long hours. And so, you know, month after month, we receive excellent reports, transparent reports that keep councillors and the public up to date on what's going on. And I don't think that's acknowledged enough.
Thank you. So, Councillor Johnson, did you want to add anything further? No. Do I have a speaker for? Speaker against? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on to item 10.2.2, investment report for the period ended 31st of October. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just looking at 10.2.2 and just a grey area here as chair of the...
Sorry, are you asking a question or are you moving what's on the table?
Both, actually.
Okay, I'll just seek a seconder first.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Annalie Peterson-Pick. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm looking at the investment report, and Bendigo Bank is there a couple of times. Where we are where I'm chair of the bank, although not the bank, sorry, the Bayswater Childcare Association, I'm assuming that I do not have to do an impartial interest because it's non-profit, and we don't receive any fees for that.
I'll go through to the chair, to the CEO.
What would you advise, please?
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, in relation to declaring an impartial interest
In the Bendigo Bank, yeah.
in the Bendigo Bank, Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, councillor, the interest of declaration that you want to declare is up to you. So if you perceive that you have an impartiality by the virtue of sitting on that association, then my advice to you would be you would declare it as an impartiality interest.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, obviously, is for that advice publicly. So I will do an impartial interest on that. Thank you. And also, as I say, a right of disclosure. And also that the investments there seem to be very satisfactory and spread around, which I think is very important. So I'm happy with what's there and congratulate the finance staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson-Pick. Does anyone want to speak in favour? Anyone against? I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Next item is 10.2.3, list of payments for the month of the end of October. That's pulled by Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. This was to obviously move the motion and also to confirm that I have group interests but are not financial in the Infant Jesus Church, which is mentioned within the list of payments. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just seek a seconder. Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Ball? Councillor Palmer, did you want to speak to the item?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Ball? Did you wish to speak? Anyone for? Wants to speak for? Anyone wishes to speak against? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 10.4.3, chaplaincy services, pulled by Mayor Pifferetti.
Thank you. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Palmer?
Thank you.
So if you could, Councillor Palmer, if you could just turn off your microphone, we'll... Thank you. Mayor Pifferetti?
I'll just keep it brief. I'd just like to firstly acknowledge and thank the principals from each of the schools within our district who participated in providing us with information regarding this program, and also thank the staff for the amount of work they put into preparing such a robust assessment and analysis for council, something that hadn't occurred since 2016-17. No review had been done on this funding since that time, so I think it's well overdue, and I'm really pleased to see what we have in front of us was really well thought out and thorough, and I think that it's a very transparent and equitable outcome, and I thank councillors for supporting my notice of motion to instigate this review.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree with everything that Mayor Pifferetti has said, and I'd like to just say that there was a disclosure that I mentioned before regarding the one of the schools where I'm on the board, but I do agree with that because there were some discrepancies in the previous paperwork that we had to make a balance on, and I'm glad that's actually been corrected for the primary schools that were there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker for? Councillor, question?
Yeah, thank you. Can I please propose some amendments?
I guess.
Thank you. So in paragraph 1, in the second line, it says schools to provide. So it'd be inserting the following words: social and emotional well-being support. And then it reads services to support chaplaincy services. And after the word services, the following words are inserted. Or emotional and social supports, services delivered by a professionally qualified well-being worker, open brackets, as determined by each recipient of such funding, close brackets. And then in the second paragraph, in the second line, it says student chaplaincy services. And after the word services, the following words are inserted. Or emotional and social support services, open brackets, as applicable, close brackets.
Thank you. Right, so we'll just go to the mover once that's up on the screen.
I'm just waiting for it to be on the screen.
Yep. Mayor Piffredi, if you can let me know when that's visible on the screen for you. Perhaps, Councillor Ball, while we're just getting that on the screen, if you could just talk to that amendment.
Yeah, sure. The goal is to allow schools to have a choice as to the nature of the social work or pastoral care worker that they choose to employ if this motion is adopted and the funding goes directly to them, particularly in light of the federal government's announcement that the chaplaincy program would be opened up to non-denominational or alternative denominational or alternative faith opportunities. Basically what my notice of motion originally sought to achieve.
Mayor Piffredi, is that on the screen for you yet?
No, it's not. While we're waiting for it to be on the screen, may I ask a question?
Certainly.
So just, I don't have the wording in front of me, so it may be a bit difficult for me to understand it, but may I ask a question through the chair to the relevant officer as to the comments just made by Councillor Bull about it aligning to the announcement from the federal government regarding the program. Does the motion as it stands, the officer's recommendation, does that not align with the federal government's announcement? Does it prevent anything in that federal government announcement being
through the chair? Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I might get the manager of community development just to clarify that, because we have looked into that matter.
Through the chair, the choice is for the schools to decide directly how they would spend that money, and so it would make no difference the current resolution or the change wouldn't make any difference to their chaplaincy services or how they spend their funds on chaplaincy services, whether it's non-denominational or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Madam Acting Chair, I still do not have the wording provided.
Yeah, we're trying to get that up there for you, Mayor Pifredi. Just one moment, please. Can you see that now?
Something's coming up on my screen. I just need to see the difference. May I ask some questions
Certainly, Madam Mayor.
before making a decision on this amendment? What's a qualified wellbeing worker? What does a qualified wellbeing worker? What qualification is that?
Are you seeking an answer from the proposed mover or through one of the officers?
From Councillor Bull.
It's the Cert 4 qualifications that were discussed in the report as part of my notice of motion.
So Cert 4 in what?
It's Cert 4 in, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's, it's chaplaincy, welfare work. I can't remember the exact wording, but it is very clear in the program what that is. I just don't have it in front of me right now.
Okay. And sorry, what emotional and social support services do they provide that a chaplaincy worker doesn't provide?
It would be the secular non-denominational services contemplated in my original notice of motion.
So may I have a question through the chair to one of the officers? My understanding of in the report is that there are chaplaincy providers who are non-denominational that have a contract with the state government to provide services in schools. Can I get clarification if that is in fact the case?
I believe that's what the manager said earlier, but I'll defer.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
So may I ask through the chair to the manager, is there any differences in this motion by including these amendments or not including them?
In the previous resolution officer's recommendation, in point 2, I'm highlighting programs of their choice to support student chaplaincy services and student wellbeing. And from my understanding, that is very similar to this resolution that is in front of you.
So, okay, so I interpret that as meaning that there's not a big difference. So in that case, I'm accepting the amendments.
And I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Parvo. Do you accept the amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Right, so I'll go for a mover on as to a. So somebody want to speak in support of the motion? Councillor Ball.
So I'd like to thank the mover and the seconder for accepting my wording, which actually is really important, because if it is the case that the word chaplaincy carries a particular definition that goes beyond Christian chaplaincy, then I don't think that everyone in the public would understand that to be the case. And so clarifying very clearly the choices that a school is able to make now or from 2023, I think is actually really, really important, because when I read this motion and the report, there was nothing that indicated that the word chaplaincy actually extended beyond Christian chaplaincy. And that was actually ratified, I believe, by firstly, my notice of motion, and also by the Mayor's notice of motion, where I spoke very clearly about this question about what the word chaplaincy means, and no one rebutted my concerns around that. And on that basis, I think actually this drafting is really, really important, irrespective of whether the city has a view on what that actually means. We want to be very clear. Words are very powerful. I think it is really, really disappointing that schools have missed out on 6 months of service as a consequence of this process. Had my original notice of motion been achieved, what would have happened is the money would have gone out the door straight away. Schools would have had an entire semester of social and emotional wellbeing support that they now have not, and there would still have been an opportunity for this council to do LIM 3. There would have also been the ability for council to review where the funding goes, but in the meantime, it doesn't matter where the funding was going to go because the funding has gone nowhere. So I'm going to support this motion, but I think it is really important that council has realised that they had an opportunity to make sure that children in our district could receive the funding and the emotional and social wellbeing support that clearly this council believes is important for the second half of this year. That has been squandered, that has been a missed opportunity, and I really do believe that had councillors supported my original motion,
Sorry, Councillor Ball,
that wouldn't
there's
have been missed out
point of
on.
order.
I've finished.
Sorry, Councillor Ostaszewski, that was a point of order.
Yeah, it's 8.14, adverse reflection. The member is not to reflect adversely on a decision of the council or a committee, except unless a motion on a motion that the decision be revoked or changed. So it's adverse reflection on a previous council decision.
Councillor Ball, I'll uphold that. Do you wish to withdraw your comment?
Which comment am I being asked to withdraw?
The point of order is raised by Councillor Ostaszewski with adverse reflection to the commentary about a previous decision of council.
If I can be told, if it can be clearly stated what I need to withdraw, given I was highlighting the fact that as a consequence of council's decision, funding hasn't been provided for the last 6 months, if the actual words that I use can be identified, then of course I will withdraw it.
Councillor Ostaszewski.
What I was hearing made me want to pull a point of order on adverse reflection. I don't have the ability now to go back and look at exactly what those words were, but I had 2 ears and I was listening very carefully, and I feel there was a point of order on 8.14, adverse reflection.
I upheld on terms such as squandering.
I'll withdraw the word squandering.
Thank you. Moving on. Is there a speaker against the item? Is there a speaker for the item? Oh, sorry, Councillor Peterson, you're speaking against?
Against the item, yes. Look, I think this is, first of all, I think the changes that Councillor Bull moved are significant. Before that, it was only for chaplaincy purposes, even though the money will be given to schools for them to do what they want. It was still as part of our chaplaincy program. So I think those changes are very significant. I'm still a bit uncomfortable that the name of the program is kept as chaplaincy program. I think ideally this review would have changed the name, but that hasn't occurred. Beyond that, whilst I think this is a good cause, and I'm happy that now schools will have flexibility, I can't support it, and I mentioned it before, on financial grounds. I thought the review will lead to something else, and this was an opportunity for us to see whether we can afford it. I don't believe that this is our core business to support services happening in schools. Definitely, we have 100% responsibility for what happened outside schools, and I mentioned that before. I think the money should have gone to Safe Routes to School plan. We don't have the money to implement everything that we will need to be implementing all around the schools in the city. I think the money should have been supporting those communities when it comes to the footpaths, the crossings, the roads, everything that we are responsible. This is a program that is led by the federal and now state governments. I think they should be able to afford this, and we should focus on what we are neglecting, and we have been neglecting. So that's my view. As I always say, budget time will come very soon, and this year we are going to review the long-term financial plan. We will see the financial difficulties. This is only one out of many programs and expenditure that we are undertaking every year, which I think we should avoid if we don't have the money.
Any speakers for? Councillor Palmer, you seconded this item.
Is that okay? Can I? Yeah, I haven't
You
spoken. have I?
repassed through, so
Sorry?
sorry, as you seconder of the item,
Yes.
we've gone past that, so you had your opportunity as a seconder.
I wasn't.
Sorry.
Well, there was a bit of confusion once we started amending. I haven't spoken to it. Madam Chair, I'm fine because the voting is what's important anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Did anyone want to speak against? Councillor Sutherland?
Yeah, I'm not supporting this. I just, a couple of things. Number one, on the word chaplaincy and what it has been doing. This obviously in Bayswater has been another historical thing that we've done for many years, like aged care and like gyms and all those things. I too agree with Councillor Peterson-Pick that it's not our core business. The state government's we've got sitting on a $6 billion, it's a B, $billion surplus, and the federal government's got a lot of money too with mining royalties. I do not for the life of me see why they can't give money to those schools. Having said that, we've put that money aside for this over the years. And in terms of chaplaincy, I have been in schools, hard to teach schools, that have these services, and they are great. And we have had report after report been given to say these services do work well. It's just that word that obviously people object to. Obviously, if you're going to say to a school, do you want the pot of money, they're going to say yes, because, you know, they want that, you know, they'll think they can do better. But good luck trying to get services in this time. There's so many issues trying to get support services for kids in all a different array of things. So I'm not sure where that services are going to come from with the money that we're giving. But on overall, I think that this is a state and federal government job to support this, and it's good to see federal governments wants to, I suppose, expand the so-called national chaplaincy services, and I think it's up to them to do that, and there is a lot we can do with that money, so I'm not supporting this.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in favour? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I think, you know, we're talking about how we're going to divvy up the funding that we've already approved. This funding is for young people in our district and in public schools where we know there's a great lack of services. So it means we can support, you know, young people in our community in line with our principles. What was I going to say? Sorry, my apologies. I was surprised by the outcome of the matrix, but I think there was a fairly robust process. So I just want to thank the officers and the schools for providing that data. There's some interesting data in there that didn't land where expected, and it talked about, you know, disadvantage in our community. So I think, you know, this little thing that we can do to provide wellbeing in our schools is actually a good investment in our young people, and I'm very happy to move it away from chaplaincy. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against? Anyone for? Madam Mayor, did you like a right of reply?
Yes, thank you. I think there's been a lot of discussion about the word chaplaincy and connotations to it. And I think, you know, people who have worked in that field for all of these years have provided a really valuable service to the youth in our community. And I'd like to publicly acknowledge that work and the impact that they've had on the lives of our students. And what I will say is when I was engaging in conversations with the school principals and with board members and families, I didn't hear any negative things about any of the services provided in the school up until now. Everyone really values the service. So regardless of what you think about the word and the connotations, it has provided a lot of positive impacts for our youth. So thank you to all of those workers. I would encourage people who have any concerns about chaplaincy programs, wellbeing programs, whatever you want to consider it. The University of Western Australia published a study or a report paper. It's called An Outcome Evaluation of School Chaplaincies by the Centre for Social Policy, Practice Research and Development. So I would encourage people who are interested to have a read of that. And I do want to also make a special mention of how happy I am to see Embleton Primary School being one of the recipients of the funds this year. They really need it, and I'm really glad that this is resulting in some support for that very special school. So I hope councillors will support this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour is Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson, Mayor Pifaretti and Councillor Eveson. Those against, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Peterson-Pick and myself. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is 10.4.4. I'd like to move a motion that this one is held to section 14 for confidential items to discuss the nominees, as you know that the nominees are kept secret until Australia Day. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Palmer. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's Mayor Pifaretti, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Peterson-Pick, Councillor Johnson. Those against, Councillor Ball. So that one will be held to confidential item. Next on the agenda is 10.5.1, review of place-based strategy. Councillor Ball, you have a declaration? Yeah. Proximity, so you'll be leaving the room. This item was pulled by Councillor Sutherland.
I haven't got anything to say. I just wanted to, I think
Did you have a
it's good.
seconder for this item? Councillor Ostaszewski?
I'm happy to second it if I can add an amendment in, and I also believe there might be some other amendments which we might need to consider as well.
Okay, we'll start with the mover, Councillor Sutherland. Okay,
And that amendment's been provided earlier.
and the other amendments come through email?
I've got that one.
Yes.
So mover and seconder, are you accepting both amendments?
I'm happy to.
I just want to clarify with Councillor Pearson-Pick, number 2, the council requests the CEO to ensure that playgrounds in the city cater for different age groups, including older children. When you mean older children, what?
Yes. 12, 13, 14 years old, not toddlers, not babies, older children. Could be teenagers as well. Yes, I do actually need to mention that Councillor Palmer asked me to add another thing to my amendment, which I would like to add.
Could you please say it for the minute taker so we can get up on
Yes.
the screen? While you're just thinking about that, I'll just check with the Mayor Pifaretti and Councillor Eveson that they received the extra amendment via email. Just raise your hand.
I received an amendment from councillor Peterson Pick.
Okay, and councillor Evson has acknowledged that he has as well. Thank you, councillor Peterson Pick.
Yes, at the end of the paragraph, we'll add the words as well as the possible use of recycling materials.
Recycling or recycled?
Recycled, whatever.
Recycled. Sorry, minute taker, can you just change just that one word from recycling to recycled? And we also need councillor Ostaszewski's amendment in there as well. Is that on there?
No, councillor Ostaszewski's was up here. So those two combined.
Yeah, so we need to combine. So lim 2 of councillor Peterson's Pick 1 will become lim 3 in the one above. For the amalgamated, with the substantive. Amalgamated resolution.
Yeah, so that becomes the new substantive. So are both
Yep.
councillor Sutherland and councillor Ostaszewski happy with that?
So, Mayor Piffredi?
They're fixing it now. It looks, that's okay.
Yeah. So councillor Sutherland, councillor Palmer, if you can see what's on the screen before you as the amended substantive that contains the amendments by councillor Peterson Pick and councillor Ostaszewski.
Happy
Can
with
you-
that, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm happy.
And as a
Rahul?
seconder, I'm happy with that as well.
Thank you. So councillors, before you is the new substantive motion. Do we have sorry, councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, look, I'm happy with the two changes. In terms of Flora Reserve play space, I think it is important that if we have subdivisions around the place, I'm always onto this, we need to have the facilities for people to, feel at home and for their kids to play, etc. Seating doesn't cost that much, so a few benches and that are a good thing. And in terms of councillor Peterson Pick, the older children, obviously 12, 13, 14, that's sort of a bugbear. It's that age group where, as I keep saying all the time, I'd love to see the basketball and tennis courts in the schools open so we could share the facilities for these kids instead of having to do our own. But having said that, I think, we do need to consider some of those kids. I'm liking the exposure to the increased usability and prevent sunburn risks for children. I think my days in the playground were a little bit different to that. But we need to obviously think about these things, especially with the skin cancers in the future and all those sorts of things. So I think it's a good strategy and I support it.
Thank you, councillor Ostaszewski.
Thank you. Lim number 2, I just want to quickly speak on the new lim number 2 there in regards to Flora Reserve play space. There are 3 parks in the area identified in the officer's report for 2024-25. We've got Flora Reserve, we've got Headley Place, and we've got Joan Rycroft Reserve. And when you actually go and look at, they're the only local parks in that kind of area bound Walter Road, Rugby Street, Tonkin Highway, Collier Road. They're the local parks. And of those 3 that I've just mentioned, Headley and Joan Rycroft are already very good examples of parks that are sufficiently covered with trees and the play equipment actually looks quite good. Flora Park, on the other hand, the play equipment is extremely dull. Very dull. The water corp sump there has hideous old mesh fencing. There's a dark corner in that park there. There's no seating. The trees at Flora Park are only on the verge area, so there are none around the play space at all. So I just feel Flora Park needs some attention sooner than later. And interestingly, I had some conversations with Flora Park residents over the last couple of days, and it's just really great that this has come up onto the agenda of council so that we can try and move this forward to get some investment in this space for the people around that area.
Thank you. Any speakers for? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just also to thank both councillors and Councillor Sutherland for just adding those few words in for recycling of materials. When we see Red Cycle heartbreakingly losing the opportunity of recycling that rubbish, even if we only do 10% more on recycling furniture in these parks, then we've made an effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Just before we go on, just to the minute taker, I've just noticed just a grammatical error. If we can just tidy up on limb 3 there, the last line where it has possible use of recycled materials. Oh no, sorry, my apologies. I thought there was a possibility to use. Councillor, do we have a speaker against? A speaker for? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few comments. Thank you to the mover and seconder for adopting this amendment. With regards to limb 3, I just wanted to highlight the reasoning behind that. When it comes to play equipment for all the kids, it also includes 10, 11 years old and above. We currently, in the city of Bayswater, we don't have even one good playground that caters for those age groups, unfortunately. I have a 6-year-old in the house, and I can tell you that I go far away. Like many other parents, we don't have that. We have a lot of good playgrounds that cater for toddlers, but we do need to have some more challenging equipment. I think parents in our city deserve that, and not just going to, other shires, as we all do, to look for those bigger play spaces. With regards to the materials, this is something that I've raised previously, and I still see new playgrounds where some material still being used, which is probably not so appropriate. And I would like to give an example. Just the recently Gibney Reserve playground that just a month ago we opened. There is a metal slide under the sun. Already one mum contacted me about her son hurt himself, and that was actually on a cool day. You can imagine what will happen on 35 degrees. That slide will not be used, and it will take time for the trees that were planted on both sides to grow and shade. So I think we should always consider the materials that we're using and whether there is shade or no shade, because it does impact the kids. And when it comes to shade, I'm also very happy to see that the annual shading program that I moved several years ago is now a practice, and it's happening. I remember there were lots of questions and some concerns, and now it's already there. And I thank the officers for implementing it, and I'm hoping that we will see shade across all playgrounds gradually. Thank you.
Is there any speakers against? Any speakers for? I'll put the item to, oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Sutherland, would you like right of reply?
No, I'm happy with what.
Thank you. I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Mayor Pifariti, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Ellie Peterson-Pick, Councillor Johnson and myself. It's unanimous. Can we just get Councillor Bull back in? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Bull. That passed as per what's on the screen there before you. The next item on the agenda, was pulled by Councillor Ball. That's 10.6.1.1, the Aged Care Capital and Operating Budget 22-23. Move the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Is there a seconder for this item, 10.6.1.1? Councillor Palmer? Sorry, can I just check this with Councillor Pifferetti? Councillor Pifferetti, are you still there? No, we'll just leave that for the moment.
Yes,
Councillor-
I am, sorry.
That's all right. Councillor Ball, would you like to open?
Thank you. Yes, I am encouraging councillors to support this. This is the budget item for our aged care facilities in the district. It has been not the easiest budget to put together by Juniper and then by our officers as well, mainly because the new funding model, the AN-ACC model, that has been coming in has kind of been delayed, and therefore we just haven't had the data to be able to finalise it. So I'm really glad that it's managed to make its way here, and I hope that councillors support this with a small surplus.
Thank you. And to the seconder, Councillor Palmer? Does anyone wish to speak in favour? Anyone against? I'll put the item straight to the vote. Those in favour? That's Councillor Eveson, Mayor Pifferetti, Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pitt, Councillor Ball, Councillor Johnson and myself. Those against? Councillor Sutherland. That's carried. Moving on to the next item is 10.6.1.2, pulled by Councillor Ball, Residential Care Facilities, Compliance with Prudential Standards. And do we have a seconder for that one, the officer's recommendation? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Ball.
Thank you again. I encourage councillors to support this. This is connected to the previous one, and it shows that the liquidity strategy of 10%, which is in line with Juniper's practice, appears to be operating in the way that it should. Therefore, no transfers are required, and I thank the officers and also Juniper for putting this report together for our benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think a special thanks to all our officers in the Aged Concern and Governance. It's a big job, and also to Juniper for holding hands with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in favour? Anyone against? I'll put that item straight to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Eveson, Mayor Pifferetti, Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pitt, Councillor Ball, Councillor Johnson and myself. Those against? Councillor Sutherland. That's carried. Item 10.6.1.3, Councillor Ball pulled on update on aged care governance framework. Yeah, seconded by, do we have a seconder? Councillor Palmer? Councillor Ball?
Can I just ask a question first, if that's
Certainly.
okay? Just above the committee's recommendation to council, it refers to an attachment 1. It doesn't say it's a confidential attachment, but I'm wondering whether the intention is that it is a confidential attachment. Happy to be corrected, but I just wanted to just double check that,
So you'd like to go through the chair to the CEO?
please.
CEO? We'll put that through to the director.
Through the chair, yes, I believe that should be a confidential attachment. Thank you for drawing our attention to that.
It does have it on the header title on page 354. Mr. CEO, would you like to respond to Councillor Ball?
Councillor Bull, after the attachment 1, we could list confidential there, if that would suffice. It is in the header as listed as confidential, but for clarification purposes, we can still put that against it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not going to speak on this for want of stepping over the line.
No worries. Councillor Palmer? No worries. Do we have any speakers on this item? No. I'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Eveson, Mayor Pifaretti, Councillor Ostaszowski, Councillor Palmer. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, item 10.6.2.1, Planning Policy Review, Local Heritage Fund Policy, pulled by Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Seconder.
Did you want to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, yes.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Peterson-Pick. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the report. I think it's been a long time since we've actually reviewed this, and going through all the red letter pages and so forth and coming back with great black pages and a good budget funding for any proposals is very satisfactory. It's not over the top, but it will suffice on a 50-50 basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yeah, look, I support this. Whilst this is the other side of protecting heritage. This is how we support those owners that agreed or part of our scheme to support their heritage places. I think it's very important. During the years, I've been contacted by quite a lot of owners that were confused about the process around this fund, and I'm hoping that the changes that are proposed here will simplify it. It will make it easier for more and more owners of heritage places to apply for grants for the benefit of the whole community.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers for? Any speakers against? I'll put the item straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Eveson, Mayor Pifaretti, Councillor Ostaszowski, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pick, Councillor Bull, Councillor Johnson and myself. Those against? Councillor Sutherland. Okay, next item is being pulled as a subject of a proximity interest. That's 10.6.2.4. Councillor Palmer, you declared a proximity.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I live opposite the reviewed lot, so I shall leave the room. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Sutherland, was your declaration was it a impartial or was it proximity as well? Sorry, yeah. Okay, do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Committee's recommendation, my apologies, which was the same as the officer's recommendation. Yep, Councillor Ostaszowski and Councillor Eveson seconding. Councillor Ostaszowski, did you want to speak to it? No. Councillor Eveson? No. I'll put the item straight.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, certainly.
I'm just interested if someone from the committee can explain why they felt this amendment was needed.
What page are you on?
428.
If I can go through to the director.
Through Chair, it was basically just to clarify. I'm looking at just unless it's incorrect, 10.6.2.4. But basically it was just to clarify because there's different clauses, one in the policy. So it's just to clarify that the where that sits, that provision, it relates to clause 1 of that particular section, the scope section.
Just for greater clarification around that it's only for the commercial, not residential developments.
Sorry, a quick follow-up question.
Yep.
I'm just interested to understand whether the reason for that amendment, though, was that something that the committee felt needed to be articulated? Is this a new concept, or is this something just trying to capture the intent of the city?
From my recollection of that committee it was just for a greater clarification around that point.
Yep.
I'll just see if the director recalls that as well.
So yeah, through the chair, that's why it was just to further clarify that the context of that clause was to relate to the scoping clause 1.
Right. Did anyone wish to speak for this item or against? I'll put this item straight to the vote. Sorry, Mayor Piffretti, are you there? Yeah, thank you, sorry. I'll put this item straight to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ostaszowski, Mayor Piffretti, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Peterson-Pick, Councillor Ball, Councillor Johnston, myself, that's unanimous. We'll still keep. Can we get Councillor Sutherland back in, please? Councillor Palmer still has a proximity in the next item of 10.6.2.5.
Sorry, Madam Chair, we've lost quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or okay, 6.
Mayor Piffretti, are you still there? Okay. Well, we've got 6. Looks like Mayor Piffretti's not there. We've got 6.
7 with Eveson.
Oh, I'm pretty.
8 now with me.
There is, okay. 10.6.2.5, cash in lieu of car parking. Do I have a mover for this item? This item will lapse without a mover. Councillor Eveson, a seconder. Councillor Ostaszowski. Councillor Eveson, do you want to speak to the item?
No, nothing to be mentioned on this one.
Councillor Ostaszowski. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Ball?
I do have a question, if that's okay. There was quite a lot of discussion in the AGM recently about the way in which payment in lieu of car parking works, and so my question is, should council be considering holding off on making a decision on this one, that is deferring it to the next council meeting, given that the AGM items are coming in December?
This was discussed at the committee meeting, but I'll defer through to the director to respond to you.
Through the chair, the purpose of this policy and the review and the proposed policy going to council is basically in terms of the locations and when it applies, and not in terms of how the cash lieu is to be provided. That would be subject to, there is a need to do a payment in lieu of parking plan, which is proposed to go, scheduled to go to the December, in a couple of weeks' time, December on the council meeting, which will inform how the money is paid or what the money can be used for. But the purpose of this particular policy is the location and updating that. So it doesn't impact by how it's going to be, the funds are going to be spent.
Okay, I'll put this item straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. We now move into section 11. Notices of motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Palmer back into the room. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Both of those items passed as recommendation. Councillor Peterson-Pick. Installation of fencing around playground.
Yes, I would like to move my notice of motion with the change that I added, that I think councillors received, that the funding will be cash in lieu.
Yep. Okay,
Public
it's on
open
everyone's
space.
sheet. Everyone's got a copy of that amendment? Yep. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Palmer. Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Thank you. Look, this motion comes from a request or requests from local residents with regards to safety issues for kids using that specific playground at that location between Charles Street and Belgrave Street. For those who are not familiar, there is not much buffer between the playground and those roads. It is a safety issue, and when it comes to safety issues, I believe that we should deal with them immediately. The traffic problems along those roads already were raised by residents for quite some time with the city. Nothing has changed until now, or nothing has changed. And when it comes to the playground, I think this is a major risk. Only today we received 6 emails from different households, from different people living in that area, and one of them mentioned that she stopped using that playground even though it's across her house, just because of the safety risk. And I think that is very unfortunate. We have a resource, and people are not using it just because of that. So I think fencing can significantly improve the usage of that play space, which I should actually highlight. It is quite a significant play space when it comes to the location. We don't have many public spaces around the Meltham station, and especially on that side of the station. And this is one of the closest areas which serve the residents who are living there. So I think we should improve it, especially deal with safety issues. As I mentioned, the funding source will come from public open space cash in lieu, not from our municipal funding. This is why we have those funds to improve playgrounds. This is also only consideration as part of the mid-year budget review. If there are any specific problems, we don't have to progress with this. But if there are not, we should deal with those safety issues now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think the safety issue on behalf of the children using that area, a child's concentration can sort of divest from 4 seconds. When you say, please come back, 4 seconds later they're forgotten. And if they're being cheeky and happy and just wanting to run, they'll run straight onto the road. There's no doubt about that. And I think Swan Lake has fencing, so does Riverside Gardens, simply because of the dangers there. So this is another one. You have roads on either side. So I think it's quite common sense to put fencing there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers for? Councillor Ball.
Just like to thank Councillor Peterson-Pick for bringing this motion. I fully support it. This is it's a bit of an unusual reserve in that it is long and relatively narrow, but a really important piece of public open space in this area. It does cause some challenges because it is quite tree lined, and so the amount of light that gets through can mean that the turf doesn't necessarily grow as well as it could. And I do know that staff at the city over a number of years has been doing what they can to try to improve it, but the reality is this little pocket does need love, and this is going to be one step in that direction. I think there are many other opportunities to improve this important strip of green space in this area, and so I thank Councillor Peterson-Pick for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers against? Any speakers for? I'll put the item straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, so we're on to section 12. Questions from members without notice. Are there any questions from members without notice? Councillor Ostaszewski?
Yeah, thank you. My question is in regards to the expansion of the Bayswater Men's Shed. Is the city able to provide an update, please, on the progress of the expansion of the Bayswater Men's Shed into the storage area, which is behind their current location?
Through to the Director.
Yeah, through the chair, I received advice just recently that that the shed, all the materials that are in the shed, in the storage part of the shed, has been removed, and we're just waiting for the carpenters to come in and start putting in the partitions. I can probably provide a more detailed update probably in the next couple of days.
Thank you. It's good to hear that that storage space is being cleaned out and we're getting ready for that next stage. So thank you for that update.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Peterson-Pick?
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. The first one is with regards to the various dead trees, dead veg trees that were removed during the last several months. I noticed that, and we do have now mandatory replacement of trees in accordance with the revised policy that was approved by council. So my question: why not all of the those trees that were removed? Why haven't all of them replaced by new trees by now?
Through to the Director.
Yeah, through the chair. There probably are reasons why they haven't been replaced, but what I'll need to do is take that on notice and I can provide an update of what's happened with all those trees.
Yeah, thank you. My second question is about the consultation that we are currently undertaking about the ward review. I noticed that. Okay.
I am sensitive with this, but I will remove on a financial interest as I'm
Understood.
the chair of the Local Government Advisory Board.
Thank you for letting us know.
It won't be long. So I noticed that any person can submit or lodge feedback on our Engage Bayswater website, and that feedback is not connected to any specific address, which means that any person can submit 100 submissions from different computers. So how is the city managing this issue? Is it an issue that we can have one person who is really keen on one option and they can actually submit 100 comments? So it's not attached to it. So I just clarified to councillors that anyone who submits their comments, the system doesn't ask not for the name and not for the address.
I'll just put through to the Manager of Governance.
Through the chair, I need to take that question on notice to check what provisions are in place, but I don't think that we haven't identified any misuse of the system so far. We're obviously looking at the submissions as they're made, and it doesn't appear to us that anyone is abusing the process. But I will take that question on notice and come back to you with exactly how we're managing that from a system perspective.
Thank you. And just to follow up, the question is, how would the city know if there is misuse? Because there is no requirement to put any name or address, so a person can,
I believe we would be able to check the IP addresses being used to make a submission through Engage Bayswater, but that's what I wanted to take on notice. I'd need to check that.
Sorry, can somebody please bring Councillor Ball back in? Do we have any further questions without notice? No. There's no items of urgent business at tonight's meeting. And we have 4 items that will be on the confidential section of the agenda. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to go behind closed doors? Mover, Councillor Eveson, seconder, Councillor Ball. I'll put that all to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Eveson, Mayor Piffretti, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Ball, Councillor Johnson and myself. Those against, Councillor Ostaszowski and Councillor Peterson-Pick. So I'll ask members of the gallery, we have to go behind closed doors now, so if you could please leave. We'll reopen the doors when the confidential section has finished.
Can we just confirm with Councillor Everson and Councillor Piffredi that they're in a secure, confidential location?
Councillor Eveson and Mayor Thank you, and I'll close this evening's meeting at 10:29 p.m.